education, for me, is key. And this is what we need to do before 2014. One of the criticisms of Bersih, and I accept it, I take it on board, is that we were perhaps so much an urban movement. And I think that is something, that is a criticism we must take on board. And we are taking on board. Because we need, in other words, we need to reach out more. We are not just urban, we are more than that, but we haven't reached out to the outlying areas, to the rural areas enough. And when you look at Sabah and Sarawak, we just haven't reached out enough. So that is one of the lessons we have learned, that really Bersih has to be much more than an urban movement. Now, and I think at the end of the day, the lesson from Bersih is, and this is where I say, I've had many people come up to me and say, look, what next? What's going to happen? Is there going to be a Bersih 4 is the next question. And what do we do? Because we don't like what's happening. Many people don't like what's happening. My answer to that is never give up. You can take a break. A lot of people work very hard for the 13th general elections. You can take a breather. But you've got to come back fighting. Because let me tell you, there are still a lot of issues that we need to deal with. And this is where I'd like to spend 5 minutes talking about this nation that we love. We're doing all that we do because we love Malaysia. There is really cause for concern. Because after the 13th general elections, many people felt that we hope the Barisan Nasional has learned some lessons and that things will improve because they will take on board that a lot of people are unhappy with a lot of things. And any responsible government would take that on board and would try and reach out, will try and be inclusive, and will try to do what is best for the country. But we didn't see that. The first thing we saw was an attack on the Chinese tsunami. Then we see totally racist remarks. We see remarks which are fascist. We see legislation like the Prevention of Crime Act, bringing back the ISA through the back door. We have police and Home Minister coming out saying shoot to kill, speaking to a select group of audience and saying, look, you know, and talking about gangsters, they're Indians who are killing the Malays, that kind of thing, you know. And so many examples, you know, since elections, since the 5th of May, have you had a single time where you have felt from reading the mainstream press that we live in a united Malaysia? Have you felt that? You haven't, because our leaders are not giving those signals out. So a lot of people have come to me and said they're very, very concerned about what's happening in this country. And I think, in fact, I wanted to write an article, but it was also raised by Malaysian Insider when they queried and said, what's happened to our moral compass? And I think that's the question we need to ask ourselves. What has happened to the moral compass of the leadership in this country? Do they really care about the legacy that we are going to leave our children? And ultimately, that's what we are fighting for. We want to leave a legacy that our children can be proud of. And I know that there are so many of us, all of us sitting here, and so many more out there who want to be united, who don't like this extremism. I'm told that there are people who voted for Barisan Nasional who are appalled by the way they are behaving now. So what does the Prime Minister do? He sets up, or it's set up already, but appoints new people onto a unity council. and they have 6 months to deliberate and come up with a blueprint. That's all very well and good. But ultimately, it's down to the leadership. I'm sorry. The buck stops with the Prime Minister. If the Prime Minister shows no leadership in uniting the people, then you can set up 50 councils who deliberate behind closed doors. If you're not going to listen to them and you're not going to take the leadership, it's not going to happen. But that's the bad news. But the good news, and I want to leave you with on a positive note, the good news is that, again, have faith in the decency of the Malaysian people. Be rest assured that if you had to count, I would bet that the majority of Malaysians in this country are decent people, that we want a fair system, we want our strong institutions, we want democracy, we want our vote to count. Now look at the revelation. That's why I say God works in mysterious ways. The revelation by the former EC chair. Did you all read that? That's Malaysia Kini has covered it very well. Basically saying, oh, we redelineate boundaries based on race. That's basically what he's saying. To shore up or ensure Malay power. I can tell you it's got nothing to do with Malay power. Because some of the redelineation works against PAS. How can it be for Malay power? It is for Barisan Nasional to stay in power. That's what it's for. We've been saying it, by the way. In fact, Andrew was saying we should put up a sign, we told you so, because Bersih has been saying it for the longest time. They have been redelineating to keep Barisan Nasional in power. There is now practically an admission by the EC chair, the former EC chair. And when the deputy EC chair, who's apparently retiring tomorrow, was asked, he didn't deny it. He just said, we followed orders. Of course, EC chair says, oh, we don't do anything like that. Well, we'll have to wait and see. But that's why I say you can take a breather for a little while, but not for long. You've got to come back, and we've got to come back. We've got to be vigilant. We've got to educate people outside there. Do you know that I have groups of people, I know groups of people who have come up to me and said, we are going to start, for the next 5 years, we are going to go out and talk to the people. And I know that they go at weekends to places outside KL, just talking to them in their own mother tongue and explaining what democracy is about, what voting is about, what elections are about. Malaysians are already doing it. So that's what we have to do. And we must be vigilant. With the redelineation process that's happening, we have to ensure that this election commission doesn't allow another election to be stolen from the people. That's what we have to do. And I'll end by saying that never before in the history of Malaysia have I ever seen Malaysians so invested in our electoral process as I saw on the 13th general elections, on the 5th of May. People felt it was their elections. Did you feel that? And it was. They were there protecting it. They were there watching. They were fabulous. So that's what we need for the 14th general elections. But before then, there is work to be done. And we can all do our little bit. We can all do our little bit by talking to people, by going out, and making sure that all these stories that they are told do not come into play at the next general elections. Many of them, let me tell you very frankly, have come and said, yeah, they voted the way they voted because they really were scared the Chinese were going to take over if they didn't. I'll tell you that very frankly. So this is the kind of misinformation that we need to put a stop to. And I suppose there's no harm. And I think journalists play a big part here, and you've done a wonderful job congratulations to all the journalists in Malaysia Kini and all those journalists who go out there and ferret information from our leaders, constantly questioning. And I think maybe we too should reach out, not just to opposition, we too should reach out to the Barisan MPs. We should talk to them whenever you have a chance. If they are your MP in your constituency, go and see them, speak to them, eyeball to eyeball, and ask them, is this the kind of Malaysia you want to leave to your children? Just ask them that question. And I think we need to keep them accountable, and that's what's important. Ladies and gentlemen, when I say Malaysians were invested in the elections, basically I'm saying they are invested in building democracy in this country, and that is the best investment you can make. Thank you.